The Mental Reset You Need in 2026, written by MindForge Audiobooks. Introduction. You feel stuck, not because you're not trying, but because something inside you feels heavy, drained, overwhelmed, behind. Like no matter how much you think, plan, or push yourself, nothing really changes. And as 2026 begins, you carry that same weight with you. The unfinished goals, the past mistakes, the pressure to do more, be more, become more. But no one talks about this part. The emotional exhaustion, the silent burnout, the constant overthinking that never seems to stop. You look fine on the outside, but inside, your mind is tired. Because you've been carrying too much for too long. And here's the truth, most people won't tell you. You don't need more effort. You don't need more pressure. You don't need to push harder. You need a reset. Because when your mind is overloaded, more effort doesn't fix it. It breaks it further. You can't build a new life with an exhausted mind. You can't move forward while holding on to everything from the past. And yet, that's exactly what most people try to do. They carry old identities into new years, old habits into new goals, old thinking into new opportunities, and then they wonder why nothing changes. This audiobook is different. This is not about doing more. This is about letting go. Letting go of the version of yourself that is no longer working, the habits that are draining you, the thoughts that are holding you back, so you can rebuild. With clarity, with intention, with control. Because 2026 is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming who you were meant to be, without the weight that's been holding you down. But Chapter 1, you're mentally overloaded. You wake up tired, not physically, mentally. And the strange part is, you can't always explain why. You didn't run a marathon. You didn't do something extreme. But your mind feels heavy, foggy, restless, drained. This is the reality of mental overload. You are living in a world that never goes quiet. From the moment you wake up, your attention is being pulled in every direction. Notifications, messages, social media, news, endless content. Your brain is constantly processing, scrolling, comparing, thinking, reacting. Even when you think you are resting, your mind is still active, because it is still consuming. This is the first problem. Constant noise. Your brain was not designed for this level of input. It was built to focus on a few important things, not hundreds of signals every hour. But now, you are exposed to more information in a single day than people used to experience in weeks, and your brain is trying to keep up, trying to process everything, trying to make sense of it all, but it can't, so it becomes overloaded. This leads to distraction. You start something, then switch. You try to focus, but your mind drifts. You lose track. You feel scattered. Not because you lack discipline, but because your attention is exhausted. This is what information overload does. It fragments your focus. It reduces your clarity. It weakens your ability to think deeply. And over time, this becomes your normal state. A restless mind, a distracted mind, a tired mind. This is why your brain feels exhausted even when you do nothing. Because mental work is still work. Thinking is work. Processing is work. And your brain has been working all day, even when your body hasn't. Scrolling is not rest. It is stimulation. Comparing is not rest. It is mental activity. Worrying is not rest. It is energy consumption. So at the end of the day, you feel tired. Not because of what you did, but because of what your mind processed. This is silent exhaustion, and most people don't recognize it. They think they need more motivation, more discipline, more effort. But the real problem is overload, and adding more effort to an overloaded mind only makes it worse. Another hidden factor is the pressure to always be productive. You feel like you should be doing something, improving, working, learning, growing. Even when you try to relax, there is a voice in your head saying, "You're wasting time. You should be doing more. You're falling behind." This creates constant pressure. You are never fully at rest, never fully present, always thinking about what you should be doing next. And this pressure drains your energy because your mind is never allowed to recover. It is always on, always active, always thinking. This leads to burnout. But not the obvious kind, not the kind where everything stops. This is slow burnout, gradual, invisible. You still function, you still show up, but something feels off. You lose focus, you lose motivation, you feel disconnected. Things that once excited you now feel heavy. Simple tasks feel overwhelming, and you don't understand why, because on the surface, everything looks fine. But internally, your system is overloaded. This is why recognizing mental burnout is so important. It doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like constant tiredness, lack of focus, low energy, overthinking everything. It looks like being busy, but not moving forward. It looks like doing things, but feeling empty. And the worst part is, many people blame themselves. They think, "I'm not disciplined enough. I'm not working hard enough. I'm just lazy." But that's not the truth. You're not lazy. You're overloaded. Your brain has been processing too much for too long, and it needs space. It needs clarity. It needs a reset, because you cannot perform at your best with a crowded mind. You cannot think clearly when your attention is scattered. You cannot feel motivated when your energy is drained. This is why the first step is not doing more. It is doing less noise, less distraction, less unnecessary input. You need to create mental space, moments where your mind is not consuming, not reacting, not processing, just being. This is where clarity begins. This is where your brain recovers. This is where your focus returns. Because your mind is not broken. It is overwhelmed. And once you understand that, you stop blaming yourself. And you start changing your environment. You start protecting your attention. You start choosing what you allow into your mind. Because your attention is valuable. And what you give it to shapes your reality. So if you want to reset your life in 2026, start here, not with more effort, but with less noise. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is give your mind the space it has been asking for. The Chapter 2. You're carrying too much from the past. You are not just living in the present. You are carrying pieces of your past with you every day. Not physically, mentally, emotionally, silently, past failures, old regrets, moments you wish you could change. They don't stay behind, they follow you, and over time they become weight, invisible weight, but heavy enough to slow you down. This is emotional baggage, and most people don't realize how much they're carrying because it becomes normal. You replay conversations in your mind. You remember mistakes. You think about what you should have done differently. And each time you revisit the past, you reinforce it. You give it more power. This is how old failures and regrets stay alive. Not because they are happening again, but because you keep thinking about them. Your mind treats those memories as important, as warnings, as lessons. But sometimes they become limitations. You start to believe, "I failed before, so I'll fail again. I messed up once, so I can't trust myself. That didn't work, so nothing will." These are not facts. They are interpretations. But when you repeat them enough, they feel true. And that's how your past begins to control your present. You hesitate. You doubt yourself. You avoid opportunities, not because of what is happening now, but because of what happened before. This is the trap. You are no longer responding to reality. You are responding to memory. And memory is not always accurate. It is emotional. It exaggerates. It focuses on what hurt. So your past feels bigger than it actually was, more important, more defining. But here's the truth. Your past is information, not identity. It shows what happened, not who you are. But if you hold on to it too tightly, it starts to define you. It shapes your thinking, your decisions, your behavior, and that keeps you stuck. This is where the choice begins, holding on or letting go. Holding on feels familiar. It feels safe. Because even if the past was painful, it is known. Your brain understands it. Letting go feels uncertain because it requires you to release something you've carried for so long, even if it's hurting you. This is why people hold on, not because it helps them, but because it feels easier than change. They replay the past. They justify it. They stay connected to it. But holding on has a cost. It drains your energy. It limits your thinking. It keeps you from moving forward because you are always looking backward. Letting go is not forgetting. It is not pretending nothing happened. It is not ignoring your experiences. Letting go is releasing the emotional attachment. It is deciding, this no longer controls me. It is understanding that your past shaped you, but it does not define your future. This is a powerful shift, because once you let go, you create space. Space for new thoughts, new actions, new outcomes. But you cannot create something new while holding on to everything old. Releasing what no longer serves you is necessary, not optional, because growth requires space. So how do you begin? First, you acknowledge it. You recognize what you are holding on to. What memory keeps coming back? What mistake still affects you? What regret still holds weight? Be honest, because awareness is the first step. Then you question it. Ask yourself, is holding on to this helping me or hurting me? Most of the time, it is hurting you. It is keeping you stuck. It is limiting your actions. And once you see that, you can choose differently. You can decide to release it, not because it didn't matter, but because it no longer needs to control you. Another important step is reframing your past. Instead of seeing it as failure, see it as experience. Instead of seeing it as a mistake, see it as feedback. Because everything that happened taught you something. It gave you insight, it gave you awareness, it gave you growth, and that changes how you see it. It is no longer a burden, it becomes a lesson, and lessons don't need to be carried. They need to be applied. Finally, you take action. Because letting go is not just a decision, it is a practice. Each time the memory appears, you choose not to follow it. Each time doubt arises, you move anyway. Each time the past tries to control you, you bring yourself back to the present. This is how you break the pattern. Slowly, consistently, intentionally. Over time, the weight becomes lighter. The thoughts become quieter. The past loses its grip, and you begin to feel something different. Freedom. Because you are no longer carrying everything. You are no longer defined by what happened. You are no longer stuck in old patterns. You are present. And from that place, you can move forward. You can create. You can grow. Because now your past is behind you, where it belongs. And your future is finally in front of you, where it has always been, waiting. A Chapter 3. Overthinking is draining your energy. You're tired, but not from doing, from thinking. Your mind runs constantly. You replay conversations. You imagine outcomes. You analyze every detail. And it feels like you're trying to solve something. But nothing gets solved. This is the trap of thinking without action. It feels productive. It feels responsible. It feels like you're working it out. But you're not moving forward. You're circling the same ideas again and again. Same questions, same doubts, same scenarios. And because nothing changes in reality, your mind keeps searching for answers. So it thinks more. And more thinking creates more uncertainty. This is how overthinking drains your energy. Not in one big moment, but in small, constant leaks. Every decision you delay, every possibility you replay, every what if you follow, it costs you energy. And over time, that cost adds up. This leads to mental fatigue. You feel exhausted, even after doing very little. Simple tasks feel heavy. Small decisions feel difficult. Your focus weakens because your mind has already spent its energy, not on action, but on analysis. This is decision exhaustion. Your brain has a limited capacity for decisions, and overthinking uses that capacity on things that don't move you forward. You decide what to wear. You rethink what you said. You question what you should do next. By the time something important comes up, you feel drained. You delay. You avoid. Because your mental energy is already used. Another reason your mind never feels quiet is because it's not designed to stop. It's designed to continue, to predict, to analyze, to solve. But when there's no clear endpoint, no action, your brain keeps running. It tries to close the loop. But without action, the loop stays open. So it keeps spinning. This creates constant noise. You can't relax, even when you try. Because your mind pulls you back into thinking. It tells you, you haven't figured it out yet. You need more clarity. You should think a little more. But more thinking doesn't always bring clarity. Sometimes it creates confusion because you're adding layers without removing uncertainty. This is why your mind feels loud, not because something is wrong, but because the cycle is incomplete. Thinking needs action to close. Without action, it repeats. Breaking this cycle requires a shift, not more thinking, but movement. You don't need to solve everything. You need to take one step, because action gives your mind something real. It replaces imagination with experience. It replaces what if with what is. And that reduces noise. Start small, not perfect, just real. Send the message, make the decision, begin the task, even if you're unsure, because clarity doesn't come before action. It comes from it. Another important step is limiting thinking time. Give your mind a boundary. Decide. I'll think about this for 10 minutes, then act. This prevents endless loops. It trains your brain to move, because without a limit, thinking expands. It fills the space you give it. You also need to simplify your focus. Overthinking grows when you try to solve everything at once. So narrow it down. Ask, what's the next step? Not the whole plan, not the final outcome, just the next move. This reduces pressure and makes action easier. Another shift is accepting uncertainty. You don't need all the answers. You don't need perfect clarity. You don't need guarantees. Waiting for those things creates delay. Instead, act with what you know and adjust as you go. Because progress is not built on certainty. It's built on movement. Over time, this changes your pattern. You think less. You act more. You feel clearer. Because your mind is no longer overloaded with possibilities. It's focused on reality. And reality is simpler. Your mind will always generate thoughts. That won't stop. But you don't need to follow all of them. You don't need to analyze everything. You don't need to solve every possibility. You need to move, because thinking alone drains you, but action energizes you. And the moment you shift from thinking to doing, you take your energy back. Chapter 4. You've lost focus. You sit down to do something important. You start. And within minutes, your attention drifts. A notification, a thought, a quick check on your phone. And suddenly you're somewhere else. Scrolling, switching, distracted. You try to come back, but it's harder than it should be. This is not a lack of discipline. This is a loss of focus. And it didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly, through constant distractions. Your attention is being pulled in every direction. Phones, social media, messages, endless content. Every alert is a trigger. Every scroll is a reward. And your brain is learning something. To stay engaged, keep switching. This is how distraction becomes your default. You don't even realize it anymore. You check your phone without thinking. You switch tasks without finishing. You look for stimulation constantly because your brain has been trained to do so. This leads to a short attention span. You struggle to stay with one task. Your mind jumps. It seeks something new, something easier, something more stimulating. And this creates scattered thinking. You start many things, but finish few. You think about multiple ideas, but complete none. Your focus becomes shallow, surface level, and without deep focus, meaningful progress becomes difficult, because real results require concentration. They require time. They require uninterrupted attention. But your environment is doing the opposite. It is breaking your attention into pieces. And each time your focus is interrupted, your brain needs time to reset, to return to the task, to rebuild concentration. But before it fully does, another distraction appears, and the cycle continues. This is why you feel busy, but not productive. You are doing things, but not deeply, not fully, not consistently. This brings us to another problem: why you can't stay consistent. Consistency is not just about motivation. It is about focus. If you cannot stay focused, you cannot stay consistent, because consistency requires repetition, and repetition requires attention. But when your attention is scattered, your actions become scattered. You start, then stop. You try, then switch. You plan, but don't follow through. And over time, this creates frustration. You feel like you're trying, but not progressing. You feel like you're moving, but not getting anywhere. And that feeling drains your confidence, because you start to believe, I can't stay consistent. I lack discipline. I'm not focused enough. But the real issue is not who you are. It's how your attention has been trained. And the good news is, what has been trained can be retrained. You can rebuild focus, but it requires intention. The first step is reducing distractions, not eliminating everything, but controlling what you can. Turn off unnecessary notifications. Create periods without your phone. Limit the inputs that interrupt your thinking, because every distraction has a cost. It breaks your flow, it weakens your focus, and it makes your mind more restless. The second step is creating space for deep work. Deep work is when you focus on one task, without interruption, no switching, no checking, no multitasking, just full attention. At first, this will feel difficult. Your mind will resist. It will look for stimulation. It will want to switch. But this is normal, because your brain is used to distraction. So you start small. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Then increase it gradually. Each time you stay focused, you strengthen your attention. Each time you resist distraction, You train your mind. Over time, it becomes easier. Your brain adapts. It becomes comfortable with focus again. Another important step is single tasking. Stop trying to do everything at once. Focus on one thing, finish it, then move to the next. This improves quality. It reduces errors, and it builds momentum. Multitasking may feel efficient, but it divides your attention. And divided attention creates weak results. Focus is not about doing more, it's about doing better. You also need to reconnect with purpose. Focus is easier when you care about what you're doing, when there is meaning behind your action. So remind yourself, why does this matter? Why is this important? This creates direction, and direction strengthens attention, because your mind has a reason to stay. Another key is patience. Focus is not built instantly. It is rebuilt through repetition, through consistency, through effort. You will get distracted. You will lose focus. That's part of the process. But each time you return, you improve. Each time you come back to the task, you strengthen your control. And over time, this creates change. Your mind becomes calmer. Your thinking becomes clearer. Your attention becomes stronger. And with that, your consistency improves. Because now you can stay with something. You can follow through. You can complete what you start. And that changes everything. Because focus is not just a skill, it is a foundation. It determines how you use your time, how you use your energy, how you create results. So if you feel stuck, if you feel inconsistent, if you feel scattered, don't blame yourself. Train your focus. Protect your attention. Rebuild your ability to concentrate. Because in a world full of distraction, focus is your advantage. And once you regain it, you take back control of your progress. Chapter 5. You're living on autopilot. You wake up. You go through your day. You complete your tasks. And then you sleep. Then you do it again, and again, and again. At some point, you stop noticing the details. Days begin to blend together. Weeks pass quickly. Months disappear. And you're left wondering, where did the time go? This is what it means to live on autopilot. You are functioning, but not fully aware. You are moving, but not intentionally. Most of your actions are repeated patterns, habits you've built over time. You wake up at the same time. You check your phone the same way. You respond the same way. You think the same thoughts. And because these patterns are automatic, you don't question them. You follow them. This is how routines become invisible. At first, they are choices, but over time, they become defaults. And once something becomes a default, it runs without your awareness. You don't decide, you react. This is efficient. It saves energy. But it also removes intention. Because when you are on autopilot, you are not fully present. You are not consciously choosing your actions. You are repeating them. This leads to days blending into each other. Nothing feels distinct. Nothing feels meaningful. Because you are not engaging deeply with your life. You are moving through it without noticing it. This is why time feels fast. Because your brain compresses repeated experiences. When something feels the same, it becomes less memorable. And when it's less memorable, it feels like it passed quickly. So even if you are busy, even if you are doing things, it doesn't feel like progress. It feels like repetition. This creates a deeper problem, a lack of intentional living. You are not asking, what do I really want? Why am I doing this? Is this aligned with my direction? You are just continuing, following routines, responding to demands, reacting to your environment. And over time, This creates a disconnect. You feel like you're living, but not leading your life. You feel like you're doing things, but not choosing them. And that feeling creates emptiness because meaning comes from intention, from choosing your actions, from being aware of your direction. Without that, everything becomes mechanical, predictable, uninspired. This is why many people feel stuck, not because they lack ability, but because they lack awareness. They are repeating patterns without questioning them. And what you repeat becomes your life. If your patterns don't change, your results don't change. This is the danger of autopilot. It keeps you in the same place, even if you want more, even if you feel ready for change. Because change requires awareness, and awareness requires waking up from unconscious habits, seeing your patterns clearly, not judging them, but noticing them. The way you start your day, the way you respond to stress, the way you spend your time. These are not random. They are learned, and anything learned can be changed, but only if you see it. So the first step is awareness. Pause. Observe your day. Where are you acting automatically? Where are you reacting without thinking? Where are you repeating the same patterns? This is not about perfection. It's about noticing. Because once you notice, you create a gap. And in that gap, you have a choice. You can continue the pattern or change it. This is where intentional living begins. Not with big decisions, but with small ones. Choosing how you start your morning, choosing what you focus on, choosing how you respond. Each small choice breaks autopilot. Each moment of awareness creates control. Another powerful step is slowing down. Autopilot thrives on speed, fast reactions, quick decisions, constant movement. But when you slow down, you see more. You notice your thoughts. You feel your actions. You become present. And presence creates clarity, because now you are not rushing through your life. You are experiencing it. You also need to reconnect with purpose. Ask yourself, what matters to me? What do I want to build? What kind of life do I want to live? These questions bring direction. They give meaning to your actions. And when your actions have meaning, they become intentional, not automatic. Finally, start creating conscious habits. Replace unconscious patterns with intentional ones, not all at once, but gradually, one change at a time, because small shifts create big results. Over time, your life begins to feel different, more present, more controlled, more aligned, because you are no longer just going through the motions. You are choosing your direction. You are living with awareness, and that changes everything, because your life is not defined by what happens to you. It is defined by what you repeatedly do. And when you wake up from autopilot, you take back control of that repetition. You stop drifting, and you start leading. And that is where real change begins. Chapter 6. Your environment is draining you. You think your problem is lack of motivation, lack of discipline, lack of focus. But what if the real problem is where you are and what you're constantly exposed to? Because your environment is not neutral. It is either building your energy or draining it. And most of the time, it's draining you without you even noticing. Every day, your mind is absorbing inputs, what you watch, what you listen to, who you talk to, what you scroll. These are not just moments. They are influences, and those influences shape how you feel, how you think, and how you act. This is where toxic inputs come in. Not always obvious, not always extreme, sometimes subtle. Constant negativity in conversations, endless scrolling through meaningless content, comparing your life to others online, listening to people who complain more than they act. These things slowly affect your mindset. They reduce your energy. They weaken your focus. They create doubt. And because they are part of your daily routine, they feel normal. But normal doesn't mean healthy. You can be surrounded by things that feel familiar, but are actually draining you. This leads to energy leaks, small losses of energy throughout your day. Not one big problem, but many small ones. Checking your phone repeatedly, switching between tasks, listening to negativity, engaging in unnecessary conversations. Each one seems small, but together they drain your mental energy. And by the end of the day, you feel tired without knowing why. Because your energy didn't go into building something. It leaked into everything. This is why you feel exhausted without doing meaningful work. Because your energy was scattered, not focused, not protected. And energy is everything. Without it, you can't focus. You can't think clearly. You can't take action. So if your environment is draining your energy, it is directly affecting your performance. Another important truth is this: your surroundings shape your mindset. You become like what you are exposed to. If you are around negativity, your thinking becomes negative. If you are around distraction, your focus weakens. If you are around growth, your mindset expands. This happens automatically. You don't decide it consciously. Your brain adapts. It mirrors what it sees. So if your environment is filled with noise, distraction, and negativity, your mind will reflect that. And that's why you may feel stuck. Not because you lack ability, but because your environment is not supporting you. It is working against you. This is why resetting your environment is powerful. You don't just change your actions. You change what influences your actions. You start by becoming aware. Look at your daily inputs. What are you consuming? Who are you spending time with? What kind of energy surrounds you? Be honest, because awareness shows you where the problem is. Then you begin to remove what drains you. Not everything, but enough to create space. Reduce unnecessary scrolling. Limit exposure to negativity. Distance yourself from energy-draining interactions. This is not about avoiding people. It's about protecting your mind, because your mental space matters. Next, you replace those inputs with better ones. Content that teaches you, conversations that inspire you, environments that support your focus. Even small changes make a difference. What you listen to in the morning, what you see before you sleep, what you focus on during the day. These are signals, and repeated signals shape your mindset. You also need to design your physical space. Your surroundings should support your goals. Clean, simple, focused, not filled with distractions. Because your environment should make it easier to do the right thing, not harder. Another powerful step is protecting your energy intentionally, not reacting to everything, not engaging with everything, not allowing everything into your mind. You become selective, because not everything deserves your attention. And what you give your attention to shapes your life. Over time, this creates a shift. You feel clearer, more focused, more in control, because your environment is no longer draining you, it is supporting you. And this changes everything. Because success is not just about what you do, it's about what surrounds you. So if you feel stuck, if you feel tired, if you feel unfocused, don't just look at yourself, look at your environment. Because sometimes the fastest way to change your life is to change what's influencing it. In Chapter 7, you're waiting to feel ready. You tell yourself, I'll start when I'm ready, when you feel more confident, when you have more clarity, when the timing feels right. It sounds reasonable. It sounds smart. But it's a trap. Because ready is not a moment that arrives. It's a feeling you're waiting for. And that feeling is often controlled by fear. This is where the illusion begins. Fear disguises itself as preparation. It tells you, you need more time. You need more knowledge. You need to think this through. And you believe it because it feels responsible. It feels careful. It feels like you're doing the right thing. But underneath it, you're avoiding action. Not because you're incapable, but because you're uncomfortable. This is how fear delays you. Not loudly, but quietly. You don't see it as fear. You see it as preparation. So you keep preparing. You research more. You think more. You plan more. But you don't start. This leads to a dangerous pattern, delaying action again and again. You set intentions. You feel motivated. You tell yourself, this time I'll do it. But when the moment comes, you hesitate. You wait. You tell yourself, just a little more time. And that little more time becomes days, weeks, months, and nothing changes. Not because you lack ability, but because you never began. This is the cost of waiting. You don't fail, but you don't grow. You stay in the same place, safe, but stuck. And over time, this creates frustration because you know you could do more. You feel it. You think about it, but you're not acting on it. And that gap between what you know and what you do becomes heavier. This is why waiting to feel ready is dangerous, because readiness is not something you wait for. It's something you build through action. Another illusion is perfect timing. You think there will be a moment when everything aligns, when you feel confident, when circumstances are ideal, when nothing is uncertain. But that moment doesn't exist. Life is always uncertain. There will always be risks. There will always be unknowns. There will always be reasons to wait. If you keep looking for the perfect moment, you will keep delaying. Because your mind will always find something missing, something not ready, something not perfect. This is how perfection becomes procrastination. You're not avoiding action. You're chasing an ideal that never arrives. But here is the truth. Clarity comes after you start. Confidence comes after you try. Readiness comes from doing, not waiting. This is why movement matters, not perfect movement, just movement. Because action changes your state. It shifts you from thinking to experiencing, from imagining to doing. And once you start, something changes. The fear is still there, but it weakens because now you're not guessing anymore. You're engaging with reality. You see what actually happens. And most of the time, it's not as bad as you imagined. This is why moving despite uncertainty is powerful. You don't wait for fear to disappear. You act with it. You accept that you won't feel fully ready. You accept that you won't have all the answers. And you move anyway. This builds confidence, not from thinking, but from experience. Each action proves something to you. That wasn't as hard as I thought. I can handle this. I can figure it out. And over time, this creates momentum. You stop hesitating. You start acting faster. You trust yourself more. Because now your confidence is based on action, not assumption. Another important shift is lowering the entry point. You don't need to do everything. You just need to start. Take one small step. Send the message. Start the task. Make the decision, even if it's imperfect, because small action breaks resistance. And once resistance is broken, momentum builds. You also need to change your definition of readiness. Stop asking, am I ready? Start asking, am I willing to begin? Because willingness is enough. You don't need certainty. You don't need perfection. You need commitment. And commitment is a decision, not a feeling. Over time, this changes your behavior. You stop waiting. You start moving. You become someone who acts, even when unsure, even when uncomfortable, even when it's not perfect. And that changes everything, because success does not belong to those who wait. It belongs to those who act. So stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting to feel ready. Stop letting fear disguise itself as preparation, and start. Because the moment you take action, you are already ahead of where you were. And that is where real progress begins. Chapter 8. You need to rebuild your identity. Most people try to change their life by changing what they do. They focus on habits, on routines, on actions, but they ignore something deeper, who they believe they are. Because your behavior follows your identity. You don't act randomly. You act in alignment with how you see yourself. If you believe you're inconsistent, you act inconsistently. If you believe you lack discipline, you avoid discipline. If you believe you're not capable, you hesitate. This is why change feels difficult. You're trying to act like someone new while still believing you're the same person. And that creates conflict. This is why real transformation requires something deeper. You need to rebuild your identity, not just your actions, but your self-image. And that begins with letting go of who you were. This is not easy, because your identity feels familiar. It's built from your past, your experiences, your failures, your habits. It feels like you, but not all of it serves you. Some parts are outdated, limiting, no longer aligned with where you want to go. Yet you hold on to them. You say, "This is just how I am. I've always been like this. This is my personality." But these are not truths. They are patterns, and patterns can change. Letting go of who you were means releasing those labels, not denying your past, but refusing to be defined by it. It means saying, "That version of me got me here, but it won't take me further." This creates space, and in that space, you choose something new, because identity is not fixed. It is chosen, consciously or unconsciously. And now, you choose consciously. So ask yourself, who do I want to become in 2026? Not what do you want to achieve, but who do you want to be? Disciplined, focused, confident, consistent? Be specific, because clarity creates direction. Once you define that identity, everything changes. Your decisions become easier. Your actions become aligned, because now you are not asking, "What should I do?" You are asking, "What would this version of me do?" This is identity-based transformation. Instead of forcing behavior, you embody it. You act in alignment with your chosen identity, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it feels unfamiliar, because identity is built through repetition. Each action reinforces it. Each decision strengthens it. For example, you don't say, "I want to be disciplined." You act like someone who is disciplined. You show up, you follow through, you stay consistent, and each time you do, you prove it to yourself. I am this person. This is how identity changes, not through thinking, but through action. And over time, it becomes natural. It becomes who you are. But this requires intention. You cannot build a new identity unconsciously. You need awareness. You need to catch your old patterns, the thoughts that say, "This is too hard. I'll do it later. This isn't me." And you challenge them. You don't follow them. You choose differently. This is becoming intentional. You stop living on autopilot. You stop reacting. You start choosing. Choosing your actions. Choosing your thoughts. Choosing your direction. Each choice may feel small, but together they create change. Because identity is not built in one moment, it is built in many. Daily decisions, repeated actions, consistent behavior. This is why you don't need a complete life overhaul. You need consistent alignment. Small actions that match your identity, again and again. Another important step is removing conflicting behaviors. If you want to become focused, you reduce distractions. If you want to become disciplined, you remove excuses. If you want to become consistent, you simplify your routine, because your environment should support your identity, not contradict it. You also need patience. Identity change takes time. You won't feel different immediately. You won't believe it fully at first. But that's normal, because your old identity is strong. It has been reinforced for years, but each time you act differently, you weaken it and strengthen the new one. Over time, the shift becomes real. You start thinking differently, acting differently, responding differently, and eventually it feels natural. You are no longer trying, you are being. This is the power of identity. It shapes everything, your habits, your decisions, your results. So if you want to reset your life in 2026, don't just change what you do, change who you believe you are. Let go of the old version, choose the new one, and act in alignment with it every day, because in the end, your life is not shaped by what you want. It is shaped by who you become. Chapter 9. The Reset Formula. You don't need more motivation. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a reset, not a dramatic restart, but a structured shift, a way to clear what's been building inside your mind and rebuild with intention. This reset is simple, but powerful. It follows 3 steps: awareness, release, rebuild. Most people skip the first 2. They try to jump straight into change, new habits, new goals, new routines, but nothing sticks because they're building on a crowded foundation, and a crowded mind cannot create clear results. So the reset begins with awareness. This is where you stop, not physically, mentally. You pause long enough to see what's actually going on. What are you thinking daily? What are you feeling consistently? What patterns keep repeating? No judgment, just observation. Because awareness reveals what you've been carrying: the overthinking, the distractions, the emotional weight, the habits that no longer serve you. Most of this runs automatically, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's where control begins, because now you're not operating blindly. You're conscious. The next step is release. This is where most people struggle, because letting go feels uncomfortable. You've been holding on to certain thoughts, habits, and identities for so long. They feel like part of you, but they're not. They're patterns, and patterns can be released. Release does not mean forgetting. It means deciding, this no longer serves me. You let go of the need to overthink everything, the habit of constant distraction, the belief that you're not enough, the pressure to be perfect. You don't fight these things. You simply stop feeding them. You stop repeating them, and over time they lose power. This creates something most people don't have: space, mental space. And that space is where clarity begins. Because clarity doesn't come from adding more. It comes from removing what's unnecessary. Clearing mental clutter is essential. Right now your mind is full. Too many thoughts. Too many inputs. Too many unfinished loops. This is why you feel overwhelmed. Not because life is too much, but because your mind is too full. So you clear it. You reduce noise, limit distractions, simplify your focus, stop consuming everything, and something shifts. Your mind becomes quieter, less reactive, more focused, because now it has room to think, room to process, room to see clearly. This is where transformation begins, not in chaos, but in clarity. And once you have that clarity, you move to the final step, rebuild. This is where you design your new direction, not based on pressure, but on intention. You decide, how do I want to think? How do I want to act? What matters now? And you build from there. You don't try to change everything. You focus on a few key habits, simple, consistent, aligned. Because rebuilding is not about intensity. It's about consistency. You create routines that support your goals, not overwhelm you. You choose actions that move you forward, not distract you. And most importantly, you align your habits with your identity. You act like the person you want to become, even before you fully feel it. Because action creates belief. Each time you follow through, you reinforce your new direction. Each time you stay consistent, you build momentum. And over time, this becomes your new normal. Another important part of rebuilding is direction. You need clarity on where you're going. Not perfectly, but clearly enough. Because direction creates focus, and focus creates progress. Without direction, you drift. With direction, you move. So define your next step, not your entire future, just your next move, and commit to it. This is how the reset becomes real, not in one big decision, but in many small ones, repeated daily, because awareness shows you the truth. Release frees you from the past, and rebuild creates your future. This is the formula, simple but powerful, and the more you apply it, the more your life begins to change. You feel lighter, clearer, more in control, because you are no longer reacting to everything. You are choosing your direction. So if you feel stuck, don't push harder. Reset. Become aware. Release what's holding you back, and rebuild with intention. Because sometimes the most powerful way forward is to start again, but this time with clarity. Chapter 10. Starting Again. With power, there is a moment where everything becomes quiet. Not because life has slowed down, but because you've stopped running from yourself. You stop comparing. You stop overthinking. You stop trying to fix everything at once. And for the first time, you see clearly, this is where I am, not where you wish you were, not where you thought you'd be, but where you actually are. And this is where real change begins, not with pressure, but with acceptance. Accepting where you are without judgment is not weakness, it's clarity, because you cannot move forward if you're constantly fighting your current reality. If you keep saying, I should be further, I shouldn't be here, I've wasted time, you create resistance, and resistance drains energy. But acceptance does something different. It grounds you. It gives you a starting point. It allows you to say, this is my reality, and I'm ready to move from here. No blame, no guilt, no excuses, just awareness. And from that place, you can act with power, because now your energy is not spent on regret. It's focused on action. The next step is simple. Take small, intentional steps, not big leaps, not overwhelming plans, just one clear action. Because starting again doesn't require intensity, it requires consistency. You don't need to fix your entire life. You need to move forward, one step, then another. Each step may feel small, almost insignificant, but it matters because small actions build momentum, and momentum changes everything. At the beginning, it will feel slow. You may doubt yourself. You may question if it's enough. But don't rush it, because speed is not the goal. direction is. You are not trying to prove anything. You are building something, and building takes time. Another important shift is focusing on intention. Not just doing, but doing with purpose. Why are you taking this step? What does it lead to? How does it align with who you want to become? When your actions are intentional, they carry more weight. They create meaning. And meaning creates motivation. Because now, you're not just moving. You're moving with direction. This is how you build momentum from zero. At first, there is resistance. Your mind will try to pull you back. Old habits, old patterns, old doubts, they will show up. But each time you act anyway, you weaken them. Each time you follow through, you build strength. And slowly, something changes. Action becomes easier. Consistency becomes natural. You stop forcing yourself and start flowing. This is momentum. It starts small, but it grows. And once it builds, it carries you forward. You no longer rely on motivation. You rely on movement. And movement keeps you going. Another powerful part of starting again is this. You are creating a new version of yourself, not overnight, but step by step, through your actions, through your choices, through your consistency. Each decision you make is shaping who you are becoming. When you choose discipline, you become disciplined. When you choose focus, you become focused. When you choose action, you become someone who moves forward. This is identity in motion. You are not waiting to become that person. You are becoming that person through what you do. And over time, it becomes real. It becomes natural. It becomes you. But this requires patience. You won't feel different immediately. You won't see results instantly. And that's okay. Because real change is not immediate. It is built, layer by layer, day by day. And the more you stay consistent, the stronger that new version becomes. Another important step is protecting your progress. At the beginning, your momentum is fragile. It can be broken easily by distraction, by doubt, by old habits. So you need to protect it. Keep your focus simple. Avoid unnecessary noise. Stay committed to your steps, because early consistency is everything. It sets the tone. It creates the pattern. And once the pattern is strong, it becomes harder to break. In the end, starting again is not about going back. It's about moving forward differently, with more awareness, with more intention, with more control. You are not the same person you were before, because now you understand. You see your patterns, you know your triggers, you recognize what needs to change, and that awareness gives you power. So don't wait. Don't hesitate. Don't look back with regret. Start now, from where you are, with what you have. Take one step, then another, and keep going. Because starting again is not failure, it is strength. It is a decision to stop drifting and start leading your life. And this time, you're not just starting again. You're starting with power. To conclusion, you are not behind. You were overwhelmed. There's a difference. You didn't fail. You were carrying too much, thinking too much, pushing too hard without space to reset. And that weight made everything feel slower, heavier, harder. But now you see it. And that changes everything. Because a reset is not failure. It's strength. It's the decision to pause, to clear your mind, to let go of what's not working, and to start again with intention. Most people never do this. They keep going in the same direction, even when it's draining them, but you're choosing differently. And that's power. You don't need a perfect moment to begin. You can start again at any moment, right now, with one decision, one action, one shift. Because change doesn't come from one big move. It comes from small, consistent changes. The way you think, the way you act, the way you respond. And over time, those small changes create a new life, a clearer mind, a stronger identity, a better direction. So don't look at 2026 as just another year. See it as your turning point, the moment you stopped drifting and started leading. Because this time, you're not starting from zero. You're starting with awareness. And that makes all the difference. What are you ready to let go of in 2026? Take a moment and be honest. Then share it in the comments. Your answer might inspire someone else to reset their life too. If you know someone who feels stuck, send this audiobook to them. It could be exactly what they need right now. Subscribe to MindForge Audiobooks for more powerful mindset content. You don't need a new life, you need a reset.